Hey people, it is Paul Wilson Lindner Jr. here, aka Positive Paul on social media. Wednesday, January 12th, 2022. And on top of all that's been going on concerning myself, the 55-year-old MK Ultra survivor, satanic ritual abuse, and these implants, I will continue to give my testimony, witness to the power of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and how it directly relates to my family. Now, what I'm about to show you is an effort that resurrecting old wounds, misrepresenting possibly what may or may not have took place, using it to fuel further fire, to discredit other individuals, meaning myself, but this concerns my family, the Lindner family, that fled Bavaria, Germany in 1868 and arrived out on Long Island, New York, Washington Square. It's now Hempstead. Very large family. I figured out this the hard way. My family history was kept hidden. But the two individuals that concern me the most would be my great-grandfather, Paul W. F. Lindner, who is part of this effort that you'll see in a moment to wipe out his existence and make him look like a foaming at the mouth racist against blacks. And while he was, yes, at age 47, after fighting the Satanists, almost probably getting killed himself, set up, almost probably being driven mad, he did join the KKK in Long Island in the mid-1920s. So again, we have to put things in context. The son of a Bavarian immigrant from Germany, many families fled Germany between the years 1860 and 1880. But to try to encapsulate everything in this short clip, this would be my initial response to what I see in the effort to also try to link me to some sort of, guilt by association. And I can tell you right now, I'm not here to condone the KKK, nor do I agree with any of their activities. And if my great-grandfather had did something that was wrong, illegal, and this was the genesis, started from the KKK, then that's wrong. But the deal is, this person who's one of many in this forum that are trying to wipe out his name across Long Island, removing street signs, this is all they have to do too, 100 years later, has got some inconsistencies. Now, I've always claimed his older brother, Carl Henry Lindner, was the Illuminati kingpin. He died on my birthday, October 17th, 2011. Ever since then, things have been going haywire for me on all fronts, specifically these implants that they've been trying to cover up my whole life. My MK Ultra, satanic ritual abuse. So with that being said, his younger brother, Paul W. F. Lindner, had definitely made an effort to fight his older brother, Carl, and the others, meaning the Federal Reserve jokers, all that. And then at some point in the early 1920s, like I said, at age 47, this guy gets involved with the KKK. And because de facto he was a very prominent figure out there at the time, he was, I guess, in charge. So anyway, they got this thing out in Malvern, New York, one of the places where he had set up shop early in the 1900s. And they're trying to wipe out his existence and make him look like a foaming at the mouth racist against blacks, which is not true. But they use these kids in this high school to make this project. And this guy right here, this Donald Pupke guy, who I had contact with and told him that, yes, my great-grandfather had fought these Satanists. He didn't want to hear about that or my MK Ultra. But we'll get back to that later. This guy is a lawyer trying to act like he's all innocent there as a private citizen. And these kids were coached. I can also prove that. But I just want you to take a listen. And the main inconsistency is he keeps saying Paul Lindner, who is my father. I am Paul Wilson Lindner Jr. Now, the person in question here, my great-grandfather, is Paul W.F. Lindner, Paul William Frederick Lindner. But he never says that. This is the first inconsistency of these lazy lying lizards.
First, I speak tonight as a private citizen with an acute interest in the history of Malvern. I'm not here speaking on behalf of any group or organization. I'll keep my comments as brief as possible. Second, as you know, last meeting, Dr. Lewis from the Malvern School District was here with students who spoke about the subject. And I commend Dr. Lewis and the students for being here. And I felt that they made a great presentation, although some of their comments were not quite accurate. I've been speaking to Dr. Lewis and to Mr. Mock, who I'm going to be working with the kids on that at some point in the future. One of the primary mistakes the students made was that they need to understand that the village itself was not even in existence when Lindner Place was made. So the board, the mayor, the trustees, had no role whatsoever in naming Lindner Place. Lindner Place was really named by Mr. Lindner at a time when he was developing the property where Lindner Place was. But really, I just wanted to mention here tonight, I'm here to speak about Paul Lindner, someone who I've never met, obviously, and a man who I only know through press accounts and a few secondhand accounts. As such, it's really difficult to get a measure of a person and to really know who he was, but he, like many people, had a life with many contradictions. And with Paul Lindner, there was a life that he led prior to 1920-21, and then there was a life he led while the leader of the Ku Klux Klan on Long Island. As in his early life, he was a man of civic virtue. He was involved in many organizations. He was a minister. He developed. He was the largest landholder in Malvern at the time. The land under where we stand right now was owned by Paul Lindner. Crossroads Farm was owned by Paul Lindner. He owned property from Wright Avenue all the way to Cornwall Avenue, and he developed it and sold it over the years. Malvern probably wouldn't be here had he not sold any of the land. But beginning in the 1920s, he suddenly appeared as a recruiter, a Kleagle for the Ku Klux Klan, the resurging Ku Klux Klan. And just a word about the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. Historians and scholars will tell you that the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s was different somewhat than the Ku Klux Klan in the 1870s. But in my mind, drawing such distinctions is wrong, because the Klan of the 1920s was still anti-black, anti-immigrant, anti-Semitic, and virulently anti-Roman Catholic. They were intolerant, and it's my opinion that they inherited the sins of the prior Klan and all of its activities. Locally, the Ku Klux Klan fought hard to prevent Our Lady of Lourdes Parish from being formed and coming into the village. The Ku Klux Klan intimidated and burned crosses on the homes of people who refused its demands to become members, and the Ku Klux Klan celebrated the defeat of the first Roman Catholic mayor in the village by burning crosses on the Lindner farm. But there's an important story about the village of Malvern and its residents that needs to be told about the Ku Klux Klan. Despite Paul Lindner's power in the Ku Klux Klan, large percentages of the residents of the village of Malvern.
Okay, here the first inconsistency that this asshole can't even say his name, who he is. It's Paul W.F. Lindner. By merely not getting the name correct, and then also by coaching these teenagers, these students that are trying to get the street signs removed with his name on it all over Long Island, wherever, you're it's destroying their credibility. That what this one guy has been the focus out there for now 10 years. No, they don't talk about anybody else. Somehow this individual, who he keeps saying Paul Lindner, which is Paul W.F. Lindner, my great-grandfather, that he alone, that nobody else. Well, here, there's a thing called Long Island Historical Journal, and an article was written up back in the early 90s, and I have it, and that talks about who was involved. But they just talk about Lindner, because this is all connected to these no-goodniks back in Germany that persecuted these Christian families. Now, again, you can't encapsulate everything, but listen to this.
Him, and they were mocked by him and others in 8 other Bank of Malvern. And within 8 years of becoming the head of the Ku Klux Klan on Long Island, he was the successful minister and real estate developer he had been. He was bankrupt, he was foreclosed, and he was effectively run out of town by the people of the village. He moved to Smithtown
I'm not
in
so
1932
sure about that,
and was really never heard of again.
That's all right.
So to address the question at the core of my presentation, were Paul Lindner's activities as the head of the KKK on Long Island in the 1920s enough to warrant this board 100 years later to change the name of Lindner Place? I believe so. I've tried any number of ways to see if there's any evidence that directly ties Paul Lindner to specific acts of racism and terrorism. However, there is no direct evidence tying him to any such activities that I could find, although he just seems to be always one step removed from these activities. However, in 1923, he was a leader of the KKK.
Okay, people. You get the point here. The point is that all this nonsense that I'm going through now is directly related to things that went on hundreds of years ago, even further back. Now, these people out in Malvern, New York, that are focusing solely on my great-grandfather, Paul W.F. Lindner, and they can't get his name straight either. And the guy Pupke won't acknowledge that I talked to him, and I told him about Uncle Carl Henry Lindner. Look, this is the false reality, folks. And so this is just my initial documentation response. It's not very good, I understand. But in the position I'm in, with the way my health is now, and having to watch this is more of a stunt to just upset me further. And it's sad to see that my family, it's a done deal. They were all sidelined. And it's sad to see this, but this is what part of the problem is. And all will be revealed soon. You just keep that in mind, folks. God bless. Peace to you all.